Greetings all, and I'd like to welcome you to another video, another study, and this one's probably going to be a little more shorter, but it's going to be exhaustive. It's actually going to be a two-part video because intermingled between the context of this video, we're going to discuss another topic, and that's mainly the identity of the Holy Spirit. But this video and the video following the interposed video, the true meaning of the Godhead part 2, is just exactly that. It's going to be talking about the Godhead. Now, in short, a lot of people make the claim that Godhead essentially means three. Like Godhead has a numerical value behind it. It is very unique because the word Godhead only appears 3 times in the Bible. Okay? And in every instance, you're going to find out that there is no numerical value attributed to the Godhead. It has a very distinct definition of what it is and who is interposed within the Godhead. There are those that who say that they don't go along with that, will say, well, the Godhead is a more proper way of saying Trinity. Okay, and there are others that will say that since the Trinity, word Trinity is not in the Bible, that the word Godhead is more proper to use. And so they will say they believe in the Godhead. But when they define the Godhead, they basically define the Trinity. Okay, so even though they'll sit there and say till they're blue in the face that we don't acknowledge the Trinity, but yet they acknowledge it because they define the Godhead as the Trinity. Is that what the word Godhead means? And so in this little short video, I think we're going to basically discover that the word Godhead does not mean 3. Okay? It has nothing to do with 3 at all. So let's go ahead and look at the 3 instances that the word Godhead occurs. And in the first instance is in Acts chapter 17, verse 29, when Paul was preaching in his famous sermon on Mars Hill, starting in verse 22 and 23. Then we're going to go down to verse 29 where the word is used. It states, "Then Paul stood in the midst of Mars Hill and said, Ye men of Athens, I perceive that in all things ye are too superstitious." That's very unique. Okay, because the men of Athens, men of Greece, superstition revolves around a lot of pagan deities, a lot of pagan gods and these types of things. And when you trace that to Catholicism, you can find the same superstitions, the aspects, even though they don't call these saints gods, but they pray to these saints as if they are gods. Okay. And these superstitions are also Trinitarian based. I mean, every single religious culture has a Trinity. Okay. So bear that in mind as well. The further we progress into the biblical study of this, before we go into the actual history of how it crept into the church, into the ecclesia, okay, into the called out, into the people of God. Because again, this was not readily preached by early Christians. Okay, as a matter of fact, if we read in the following verses, as for as I passed by and beheld your devotions, I found an altar with this inscription, To the unknown God, whom therefore ye ignorantly worship, him declare I unto you. Paul did not have the notion of declaring the unknown gods. Paul had the notion of one God, the Father. That's what he was declaring unto the men of Athens. Okay, and so in verse 29 it reads, For as much then as we are the offspring of God, we ought not to think that the Godhead is like unto gold, or silver, or stone, graven by art and man's device. And this word here is translated into the Greek as theos, which means godlike, or it just means divinity, or that which is divine. Okay? Divine. And you can see the same word picked up in 2 Peter 1, 3, and 4, which states, According as his divine power hath given unto us all things that pertain unto life and godliness, through the knowledge of him that hath called us to glory and virtue, whereby are given unto us exceeding great and precious promises, that by these ye might be partakers of the divine nature, having escaped the corruption that is in the world through lust. Okay, so this theos is basically the divine nature of God. Okay, so in this verse where Godhead is used, it just simply means divine, divinity. That's what it means. Okay, has nothing to do with a trinity. It has nothing to do with how many beings are in the Godhead. It just simply means divine nature. That's what it means. And in Romans 1:20 is where this word is used for the second time. And it states, For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse, because that when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened. You know, it's really unique, that word imaginations, because when we get into the concept, because you hear this a lot, that this whole Trinity thing is a mystery. You can't understand it. And so what does that kind of lead you down a path of? It leads you down a path of a whole bunch of imaginations. That's what it does. Okay. And this Greek word here that defines Godhead, again, is simply divinity. Okay. So, and then in the third time that this word is mentioned is in Colossians 2:9, and it's the same Greek word, theotos, as in Romans 1:20 through 21. And here we're going to get more of a clear definition of what should be properly used when using the word Godhead. In Colossians 2:9 it states, For in him dwelleth all the fullness of the Godhead bodily. Okay. Well, who is this in reference to? Well, this is in reference to the Son. This is in reference to Jesus Christ, who by divine inheritance received the things from his Father. So, in him dwells all the fullness of the divine nature, which the Father has. Okay, so the Godhead is simply none other than the divine nature, God the Father of all, and his Son, which possesses all the fullness of the Godhead. So that makes Jesus divine, just like his Father is divine. That's just very plain and simple truth. It has nothing to do with 3 in 1 or a numerical value of 3. Ephesians 4:6, there is one God, and he is the Father of all, who is above all, and through all, and in you all. Okay, so we have one God, which is the Father. And then you have Jesus Christ, which is the Son of God that came out of the Father. Jesus himself stated that plainly many times in his Gospels, in the Gospel of John. So, any one of you that want to argue with me, you have to argue with Jesus because he's the one that said it, not me. I'm not saying it. Okay? This is what Paul is saying. Paul is simply stating that the one God is the Father of all. God the Father. You don't see any instance of God the Son in the Bible at all. You don't see God the Holy Spirit at all. You only see God the Father. You see the Son of God. You see the Spirit of God. So anyways, the Father is also the head of all, including his Son. And even Jesus Christ acknowledges this when Jesus stated in John 14, go and look it up. This verse will be used in a future video, by the way, that the Father is greater than he is. Jesus said this. Okay, this is what Jesus said, not Jesse, Jesus. The Father is also the head of all, including his Son. 1 Corinthians 11:3. But I would have you know that the head of every man is Christ, and the head of the woman is the man, and the head of Christ is God. I should have put in parentheses the Father, because that's what that is in reference to. Okay. So, the head of every man is Christ. The head of the woman is the man. The head of Christ is God. And this concept helps understand why all the fullness of the Godhead dwells in the Son. Notice why in Colossians 1:15 through 19. Who is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of every creature? For by him were all things created that are in heaven and that are in earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones, or dominions, or principalities, or powers. All things were created by him and for him. So not only were all things created by him, they were also created for him. Who's the him? The Son. They were created for the Son, as well as by the Son and the Father. And he is before all things, and by him all things consist. And he, Christ, is the head of the body, the church, who is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, that in all things he might have the preeminence. For it pleased the Father that in him should all fullness dwell, all fullness of the divine nature, the Godhead. Okay? So in all actuality, if you want to put a number behind it, how many beings are in the Godhead? Well, essentially, there's only one, and that's God the Father. Split the word up, Godhead. Okay, Godhead. God the Father, the head of all, even Christ. And Christ, which is the Son of God, possesses all the fullness of the Godhead, of the divine nature, which by implications makes him equal with God, which makes him what? It makes him divine. It makes him God. But there is only one true God. That is the Father. And then there is the Son of God. A lot of people think that this is confusing, but I really don't see where the confusion lies. Now, I'm going to get into a little thing about philosophy here. Okay? Philosophy is basically stemmed from the Greek culture. All right? Philosophy is basically, the father of philosophy is man by the name of Plato. Okay? And this concept of the Trinity has its roots. The term Trinity really has its roots from Platonic philosophy. Now, what does the Bible say, in the same very epistle, by the way, about philosophy? It gives you a warning, actually. It says, "Beware, lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit, after the tradition of men, after the rudiments of the world, and not after Christ." So, the word Trinity is derived from the Latin word trinitas, which came from the Platonic term trios, meaning three. Thus, it is philosophical in origin. The Bible warns us about men spoiling us through philosophy. So, the word Platonic refers to the writings of Plato, which is an ancient Greek philosopher. Now, I want you to really pay attention to what I'm going to get into here, because what did the third beast in Daniel represent? What did the third beast in Daniel represent? Daniel 7:6. "After this I beheld, and lo, another, like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it." Okay. The succession of these beasts in Daniel 7 is basically more of a defining of what the dream that Nebuchadnezzar had of the statue, the head of gold, the arms of silver, belly of brass, and iron of feet, or legs of iron. Daniel 7 basically broadens that. Okay. And so, this is not really too hard to figure out. Okay. That the succeeding kingdoms, starting from the head of gold, was Babylon, Medo-Persia. The third kingdom was Greece. And the fourth kingdom would be Rome. When you go and look at Daniel 7, what comes first? You have the lion, which represented Babylon. The bear, hunched over on one side with 3 ribs in its mouth, represented what? Medo-Persia. And you had the leopard, which represented Greece. Okay. So again, just like in Daniel 2:32 states, "This image's head was of fine gold, his breasts and his arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass, his legs of iron, his feet part of iron and part of clay." Now, the third beast represents Greece. Now, what is the body of the beast out of the sea in Revelation 13? The basically the structure of the beast. Okay. We all know that, because obviously in Revelation 13, it gives all the descriptions of the 3 beasts in Daniel 7. But what is the body of this beast? Well, the body of this beast states in Revelation 13, "And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard." So, if this beast which John saw was like unto a leopard, then that means this beast would have with it a culture of Greek philosophy intermingled within its kingdom. And his feet were as the feet of a bear. Here you have Medo-Persia. And what's interesting with this is a lot of the religion that stems from Medo-Persia is Mithraism. So this beast would have elements of that in it, and elements of Greek philosophy in it, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. So his mouth is where this beast speaks. So he would speak as a lion would. So he would speak as Babylon would. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. And that's the most important thing. The dragon. Who is the dragon? Well, the dragon is the serpent of old. Satan, the devil. Okay. That gave this beast, that has Greek philosophy intermingled with it, its power and seat and great authority. And we just learned that this Trinity concept is of philosophical origin. And we know what Colossians 2 stated. It gave us a warning of philosophy, lest any man spoil you through philosophy. Don't let any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit, because philosophy sounds really good. It sounds really convincing, but it's vain deceit. It's born after the tradition of men. So, oops, I gotta go all the way up here. Yeah, I just gave you a preview of what's coming. So if the Trinity, which is of philosophical origin, and Plato was basically the father of philosophy, which is Greek, and the beast out of the sea has the body of a leopard, the third beast, which is Greek, are we to have anything to do with the doctrines of the beast? One in which is the concept of the Trinity, regardless of the differing variations. And then one more thing before I close this video out. And I'm going to leave you with this statement. Also, if you believe that the papacy is Antichrist and Rome the beast, and you know that their teachings are Antichrist, why would you side with the beast on this issue of the Trinity? Because regardless of those that defend the Trinitarian doctrine, every single aspect of that doctrine points to Rome. Why would you side with the beast on this issue of the Trinity? It stands to understand that anything out of the mouth of the beast, which the dragon gave his power and seat and great authority to, is false. Satan is the father of lies, is he not? And the thing is, and Satan can also use hints of truth to put together a scheme that would be so deceptive that would cause the whole world to be deceived. A lot of people are looking, when it comes to the mark, a lot of people are looking at the Sabbath, and those that believe in the Sabbath Sunday law and these types of things. They say that, well, if you're grounded in the Sabbath, you're safe. You ain't got to worry about it. But, I myself believe in the Sabbath, folks, but that's not the whole conclusion of the matter. There is something else when it comes to that mark. So, anyways, that's going to be well into the future, in a future video. But this is where I'm going to stop this study here. And in the next video, we're going to be going into the identity of the Holy Spirit and seeing whether rather it is a third person or essentially the same as the Spirit of God in the Spirit of Christ. So, until then, truth be told, truth be known, stay safe, and God bless, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.